Stream live. Send out a notice. Okay. See if we're live. Yeah, we are live. Okay. I think we are ready to go. And tonight we're going to do the Caitanya Caritamrta, which we haven't done for a few days. So today and tomorrow we will do the Caitanya Caritamrta. And on Thursday, of course, you all know we have Gaur Purnima here. It may be in a different day wherever you all are. But here it's Thursday evening. So the same time as my class, we're going to have a talk on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the evening on Thursday and in the morning on Thursday. So both of them will be online on Zoom, so you're invited to listen. Anyway, first we're going to chant the prayers to the Lord Nrsingadev because we are very worried about the state of the world right now. There's a major war going on in Europe at present. And we're not going to take any sides, but we are praying for peace. We're praying that people could just get along and not have such a desire to control other people. And somehow or other, we hope that Lord Nrsingadev will help facilitate that, or at least get rid of whoever are the miscreants. So we're going to chant the prayers to the Lord Nrsingadev as we've been doing since this fight, war, invasion started in Ukraine, and it seems to be escalating, and it may have deleterious effects on a lot of the world. Namaste Narasringaya Oladana Doyane Hiranyakashi Urvachaka Shilatam Kanakolaye Itona Singa Dona Singo Toya Toya Tashona Singa Bakina Singo Lila Singo Swing of a team Nam Brahma Joy The swing of a team Shalanam Brahma Joy The swing of a team Shalanam Brahma Joy Namaste Narasringaya Oladana Dayone Hiranyakasi Urvacha Shilatamka Kalaye Itona Singa Baratona Singo Itoya Toya Vitatona Singa Makina Singo Ridayena Singo The Singamatim Shanam Brahma Joy Sringamatim Shanam Brahma Joy Navakara Kama Napa Brain and Kama Buddhas Sringam Jalita Hiranyakasi Bhutanu Savatrita Nalamudi Rupa Jailakari Saude Jailakari Saude Jailakari Saude Navakara Kama Lava Brain Kama Savantrita Hari Rupa Jaya Gadi Sade Jaya Gadi Sade Jaya Gadi Sade Avakara come and love and pray and come and put this swing Darita, Iranya Kasipo, Danu Brenga, Savantrita, Adoni Rupa, the good is our day. Jaya is our day. Jaya good is our day. Jaya the string of day. The single day. The single day. Jaya the single day. The single day. The single day. The single day. Jaya the single day. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad. Paramahansa Paravatikacharya, also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya. Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se go Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikabanath Sai Mukund Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagadasami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Pimananda Hari Hari Gaur. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Dejatarni. So we're going to continue with our study of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. We're on the 25th chapter of the Madhya Lila of the Caitanya Caritamrta, and this is where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is interacting with the residents of Varanasi, and at this particular point in the story he's back in Jagannath Puri. So as soon as we finish this chapter, we go on to the Lila, and hopefully we'll be able to finish this chapter before Gaur Purnima. Then after Gaur Purnima, we'll go on to the Lila. So today we're going to do the Caitanya Caritamrta reading, tomorrow the Caitanya Caritamrta reading, and then the next day is Gaur Purnima. So we'll be speaking in general about Lord Chaitanya's appearance in the morning and in the evening. So, of course, for all of you, that means the evening and the morning, for those of you in Australia and New Zealand and Fiji. Anyway, so let's get started. Let's see, what was the announcement? Yeah, that's the announcement about Gaur Purnima. And please pray for all the people in Ukraine and in Europe right now. It's very worrisome. I've been very much absorbed because I have many friends there, devotees there, and actually all living entities are my brothers and sisters, so I'm very much concerned about all this violence that's being done unnecessarily. There's absolutely no reason for it all, except for just some mental illnesses on the part of certain individuals who shall remain nameless. Kleptocracy, it's called. Anyway, not going to get into it. We're not going to find fault with anyone, but Krishna knows who's at fault. So, let's go on to the Caitanya Charitamrita. Om Ganati Mirandasha Gananshana Shlakaya Chashuran Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So here we go. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda. So to bring us up to date, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has just returned from Varanasi to Jagannath Puri, and he's being received by all the devotees there. So these are the descriptions we're hearing right now in this particular part of the 25th chapter of the Sri Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila. So, Tabe Dune Jagannatha Prasada Nila Sabasange Mahaprabhu Bhojana Karila. Upon receiving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Pandita Goswami brought sufficient prasadam from the temple of Jagannath. The Lord then dined with everyone at his own place. Eta Kahilan Prabhu Deki Brindavana Puna Karilena Yache Niladri Gamana. Thus I have described how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri from Vrindavana. Ihaye Shradakare Kariye Shravana Achirat Payase Chaitanya Chanana. Whoever hears of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes with faith and love very soon attains shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. Madhya Lila Karilun Edigdarachana Chaya Vatsara Kaila Yache Gamana Gamana. I have thus given a summary description of the Madhya Lila, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's travels to and from Jagannath Puri. Indeed, the Lord traveled to and fro continuously for 6 years. In other words, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas when he was 24 years old, and then for 6 more years he traveled to and fro from Jagannath Puri. Sheshashtadasha Vatsara Nilachale Vasa Bhaktagana Sangikare Kirtana Vilasa. After taking sannyas at the age of 24, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived another 24 years. For 6 of these years he traveled extensively throughout India, sometimes going to Jagannath Puri and sometimes leaving. After traveling for 6 years, the Lord fixed his residence at Jagannath Puri and stayed there for the 18 remaining years of his life. During these 18 years, he mainly chanted Hare Krishna with his devotees, and that's what we're going to hear about in the Ansha Lila, the final Lila. Madhya Lila Rakrame Ebikari Anuvada Anuvada Kaile Haya Katarashvada. I shall now review the chapters in the Madhya Lila chronologically, that means in time sequence, so that one can relish the transcendental features of these topics. So this is like a summary of what we've already gone over in the Madhya Lila. Pratama Parichede Shesha Nilara Sutragana Tatima Jekona Bhagera Vistara Varnana. In the first chapter, I've given a synopsis of the last pastimes, Ansha Lila. Within this chapter is a vivid description of some of the pastimes of the Lord that took place toward the end of his life. Dvitiya Parichede Prabhupada Palapa Varnana Tatima Jinana Bhavera Digdharashana. In the second chapter, I've described Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's talking like a crazy man. Within this chapter, it is indicated how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his different emotional moods, because that's called Divyon Mala, transcendental craziness. And some of the symptoms that are manifest, like are rolling on the ground, crying out, tears pouring from the eyes, like literally like torrents of rain just spurting out from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eyes. Tritiya Parichede Prabhupada Kahilun Sanyasa Achayaragare Yache Karila Vilasa. In the third chapter, I've described the Lord's acceptance of the renounced order and how he enjoyed his pastimes at the house of Advaitacharya. And that's when he had his argument with Lord Nityananda. Not his argument, Advaitacharya's argument with Lord Nityananda, the taking of the prasadam there. Very funny pastime. Chaturte Madhava Puryara Charitrashvadana Gopalastapana Kshira Kurira Varnana. In the fourth chapter, I've described Madhavendra Puri's installation of the Gopal deity as well as Gopinath stealing a pot of condensed milk at Ramuna. And we actually talked about that during Madhavendra Puri's disappearance day, which was 2 days ago. Panchame Sakshi Gopalak Charitra Varnana Nityananda Kahi Prabhu Karena Shvadana. In the fifth chapter, I have narrated the story of Sakshi Gopal. Lord Nityananda Prabhu narrated this while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu listened. Of course, that's the witness Gopal, who witnessed the older Brahmana promising his daughter to get married to the younger Brahmana, and then the older Brahmana's family objected, so the younger Brahmana had to have Gopal walk all the way across India to witness the older Brahmana's promise, and they got married and they lived happily ever after. So, Shaste Sarvamo Mera Karila Udhara Saptame Tirthas Yatra Vasudeva Nishtara. In the sixth chapter, I've told how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was delivered, and in the seventh chapter, I've described the Lord's tour of different holy places and his deliverance of Vasudeva the leper. He had sores all over his body and worms crawling in the sores, and he was so merciful, he would put the worms back if they fell out. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so pleased with him that he embraced him, and all the sores were gone, and he became beautiful and became a guru. Ashtame Ramananda Samvara Vishtara Apaneshunila Sarva Siddhantera Sara. In the eighth chapter, I have recorded the Lord's elaborate discussion with Ramananda Roy, who was actually Vishaka. The Lord personally listened as Ramananda gave the conclusive essence of all Vedic literatures. So there was a discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy, but in this particular case, Lord Chaitanya asked the questions and Ramananda Roy gave the answers. Lord Chaitanya was asking rhetorical questions. Navame kahilun dakshina tirtha brahmana dashame kahilun sarva vaishnavami lana. In the ninth chapter, I've described the Lord's tour of South India and the different places of pilgrimage. In the 10th chapter, I've described his meeting with all his devotees. Ekadashe Sri Mandirai Veda Sankirtana Dwadashe Gundicha Mandira Marjana Kshalana. In the 11th chapter, I've described the great chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra that surrounded the Lord. In the 12th chapter, I've given a narration of the cleansing and washing of the Gundicha temple, which actually represents the mind of a devotee, so we have to keep it really pure so that Radha and Krishna can actually manifest themselves in our minds and our hearts. How do we keep ourselves pure? Well, chanting. Also, avoiding things that contaminate the heart, contaminate the mind, like basically the 4 sinful activities, but, association with people, with activities, with things that are covered by the modes of nature. You notice that you get miserable when you do that. How can you continue? You want to be happy. The way you're happy is by contacting all the time with the spiritual energy. As soon as you contact the material energy, it makes you miserable. I've experienced that. Once in a while over the last few years, I've watched a movie or something like that. I just feel like so dirty that I have to go and jump in the Ganges immediately. After watching the movie, of course, the Ganges is not here, so I take some Ganges water that some devotees brought from India, sprinkle in my head, and go Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Right. Trayodashe Rata Age, Prabhuranartana, Chaturdashe Hera Panchami, Yatardarshana. In the 13th chapter, I've described Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing before the chariot of Lord Jagannath. In the 14th chapter, there's an account of the Hera Panchami function. The Hera Panchami function, if you remember properly, was the function in which the goddess of fortune got very upset that Lord Jagannath had gone for his cart ride to Vrindavan and wanted to bring him back and sent all of her associates along with herself. And they beat up the associates of Lord Jagannath. Taramaje Vraja Devira Bhavera Shravana Swarupa Kahila Prabhu Kailashvadana. Also in the 14th chapter is an account of how the emotional ecstasy of the gopis was described by Swarup Damodar and tasted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Panchadashe Bhaktera Gunashri Mukhe Kahila Sarvamoma Gari Viksha Amoga Tarila. In the 15th chapter, I've described how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu highly praised the qualities of his devotees and accepted lunch at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. At that time, he delivered a moga. Moga was the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he offended Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as a result, he got cholera, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saved him. Shodashe Vrindavana Yatra Godadesha Pate Punani Lachaleya Nata Shala Haite. In the 16th chapter, I've described how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed for Vrindavan and journeyed through Bengal. He later returned to Jagannath Puri from Kanai Natshala. Shaptadashe Vanaprate Mathura Gamana Ashtadashe Vrindavana Viharavarnana. In the 17th chapter, I've described the Lord's journey through the great forest of Jharkhanda and his arrival at Mathura. So when he went through the forest of Jharkhanda, the tigers and the deer and the animals there were all dancing and chanting, embracing each other. And his servant Balabhadra Bhattacharya became very much amazed at seeing this. In the 18th chapter, there's a description of his tour of the forest of Vrindavan. Unavim Mathura Haite Prayaga Gamana Taramajeshi Rupe Re Shati Sancharana. In the 19th chapter, I've described how the Lord returned to Prayag from Mathura and empowered Sri Rupa Goswami to spread devotional service. Vimshati Pari Chete Sanatanera Vilana Taramadye Bhagavan Era Swarupa Varnana. In the 20th chapter, the Lord's meeting with Sanatana Goswami is described. The Lord described the personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in depth. Ekam Vipshe Krishna Ishvarya Madhurya Varnana Dvimshe Dvidvira Sadhana Bhaktira Vivarana. In the 21st chapter, there's a description of Krishna's beauty and opulence, and in the 22nd chapter, there's a description of the twofold discharge of devotional service. Trayo Vimshe Prema Bhakti Vasera Kartana Chaturvimshe Atma Rama Shlokarta Varnana. In the 23rd chapter, there's a description of the mallows of transcendental loving service. In the 24th chapter, I've described how the Lord analyzed the Atmarama verse. Panchavimshe Kashi Vasira Vaishnava Karana Kashi Haite Puna Nilachale Agamana. In the 25th chapter, there's a description of how the residents of Varanasi were converted to Vaishnavism and how the Lord returned to Nilachala Jagannath Puri from Varanasi. Panchavimshati Parichede Kailun Anuvada Yaharishavanehaya Grantarta Ashvada. I thus summarize these pastimes in the 25th chapter. Hearing this summary, one can understand the whole purport of this scripture. Sangshepi Kailune Madhya Lila Rasara Koti Grante Varnana Yai Varnana Na Yai Ihara Vistara. I have now summarized the entire subject matter of the Madhya Lila. These pastimes cannot be described elaborately even in millions of books. Jiva Nishtarite Prabhu Brahmila Deshe Deshe Apane Ashvari Bhakti Karila Prakashe. To deliver all fallen souls, the Lord traveled from country to country. He personally tasted the transcendental pleasure of devotional service, and he simultaneously spread the cult of devotion everywhere. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu personally traveled to different regions of India to spread the bhakti cult throughout the country. He also personally relished transcendental activities. By his personal behavior, he has given an example for devotees to follow. That is, one should broadcast the cult of devotional service. He specifically instructed his devotees to enjoin all Indians to broadcast this message throughout the world, because at that time the Lord could not personally travel to other parts of the world. In this regard, he has left two instructions. What are the two instructions? Bharatada bhumate haila manusha janmatyar janma sartaka kari kara parabhakar. All Indians should seriously take up the cult of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and should perfect their lives by adopting the process of devotional service. After perfecting their lives, they should broadcast this message all over the world for the welfare of all human beings. That's parabhakara, means the welfare of others. That's from the CC, Chaitanya Charitamrta, Adi Lila 941. A Vaishnava is especially interested in parabhakara, doing good to others. Prahlad Maharaj was also interested in this. He did not want to be delivered alone. Rather, he wanted to deliver all fallen souls who are bereft of knowledge of bhakti and who misuse their intelligence for the temporary benefit of the material body. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu also wanted his mission spread all over the world. Pritivityachayata nagarati gram sarvacha prachara heve moranam. In every town and village the chanting of my name will be heard. That's from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Anshalila 426. Following in the footsteps of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, we are trying to broadcast this message throughout the world. By his mercy, people are taking this movement very seriously. Indeed, our books are extensively distributed in the Western countries, especially in America and Europe. Even the ecclesiastical orders in these countries are appreciating the value of the Krishna consciousness movement and are ready to unite for the highest benefit of human society. The followers of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu may therefore take this movement seriously and broadcast it throughout the world, from village to village and from town to town, just as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself did. Krishna Tattva, Bhakti Tattva, Prema Tattva Sara, Bhava Tattva, Rasa Tattva, Lilara Tattva Ara. Krishna consciousness means understanding. This is really a definition here. Krishna consciousness means understanding the truth of Krishna. In other words, who Krishna is. Tattva, Krishna Tattva. I believe that's the first thing. Yes, Krishna Tattva. The truth of devotional service. That's Bhakti Tattva. What is devotional service? It's also Abhideya. The truth of love of God. That's Prayojana. It's Prema Tattva. The truth of emotional ecstasy. That's Bhava Tattva. The truth of transcendental mellows, that's Rasa Tattva. And the truth of the pastimes of the Lord, that's Lila Tattva. Let's see if got them all right. Yeah, Lila Tattva, Rasa Tattva, Bhava Tattva, Prema Tattva. I got them all right. They're pretty good. So, Shri Bhagavata Tattva Rasa Karila Prachare Krishna Tulya Bhagavata Janayila Sansare. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has personally preached the transcendental truths and mellows of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical, for Srimad Bhagavatam is the sound incarnation of Sri Krishna. Bhaktilagi Vishtarila Apanavadane Kahan Bhakta Mukhe Kahai Shunila Apane. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu broadcast the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam He sometimes spoke for the benefit of his devotees and sometimes empowered one of his devotees to speak while he listened. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an ideal teacher, or acharya, acharya means one who acts nicely and speaks nicely, explained Srimad Bhagavatam very elaborately himself. He sometimes also empowered his devotees to speak while he listened. This is the way an acharya should train his disciples. Not only should he describe the Bhagavata cult personally, but he should also train his disciples to speak on this sublime subject. Sri Chaitanya Samahara Kripaduvadanya Bhaktivatsala Nadeki Tri Jagate Anya. All sane men within the three worlds certainly accept the conclusion that no one is more merciful and magnanimous than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that no one is as kind to his devotees. Shradakari Lila Shuna Vakta Gana Ihara Prasade Paiva Chaitanya Charana. All devotees should hear about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes with faith and love. By the grace of the Lord, one can thus attain shelter at his lotus feet. Wow. Ihara Prasade Paiva Krishna Tattva Sara Sarva Shastra Siddhantera Ihan Bhava Para. By understanding the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can understand the truth about Krishna. By understanding Krishna, one can understand the limit of all knowledge described in various revealed scriptures. As Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 7.3, Manushanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvata. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. It is very difficult to understand Krishna, but if one tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's bhakti cult, one will undoubtedly understand Krishna very easily. If somehow or other one understands Krishna, his life is successful. Again, as Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, text 9, famous verse, Janma Karma Cheme Divyam Evam Yoveti Tatpataha Chakravadeham Punarjanma Naiti Mameti Sarjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Krishna Lila Amrita Sara Tara Shata Shata Dara Dashadike Vahiya Haite Shri Chaitanya Lila Haya Sarovarakshaya Manohamsa Jarahatate. The pastimes of Lord Krishna are the essence of all nectar, and that nectar is flowing in hundreds of rivers in all directions. The pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are an eternal reservoir, and one is advised to let his mind swim like a swan on this transcendental lake. So the essence of spiritual knowledge is found in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which are identical with the pastimes of Lord Krishna. This is the essence of knowledge. If knowledge does not include the understanding of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, it is simply superfluous, not necessary. By Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's grace, the nectar of Lord Sri Krishna's pastimes is flowing in different directions in hundreds and thousands of rivers. One should not think that the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are different from Krishna's pastimes. It is said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nahayanya. Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combination of Radha and Krishna. Thus, without understanding the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one cannot understand Radha and Krishna. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore sings, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibaya Kuti Kamihama Bhushavo Seyugala Pirati. When shall I become very eager to study the books left by the 6 Goswamis? Then I shall be able to understand the conjugal pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly empowered Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami. Following in their footsteps, the other Goswamis understood Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his mission. One should understand Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Sri Krishna from the 6 Goswamis in the Parampara system. This Krishna consciousness movement is following as strictly as possible in the footsteps of the Goswamis. Narottam Das Thakur says, Acharya Goshani Yara Muitara Das. I am the servant of the six Goswamis. The philosophy of Krishna consciousness is to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. That's, of course, a quote from the Madhya Lila 1380. Whoever wants to understand the difficult subject matter of Krishna Katha should accept that to cyclic succession, if one is somehow or other able to understand Krishna, his life is successful. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimam eti sarjana. Of course, that's again Bhagavad Gita 4:9, which says, if you understand it, when you give up your body, you will not have to take birth again. A perfect devotee is able to understand Krishna through the disciplic succession, and his entrance into the kingdom of God is thereby certainly opened. When one understands Krishna, there is no difficulty in transferring oneself to the spiritual kingdom. Wow. I wish I understood Krishna. Bhaktagana Shunamora Dainyavachana Tamasavara Paradule Ange Vibhushana Kare Kechu Muni Karan Nivedana. With all humility, I submit myself to the lotus feet of all you devotees, taking the dust from your feet as my bodily ornaments. Now, my dear devotees, please hear one thing more from me. Krishna Bhakti Sanandagana Yate Prapula Padma Vana Taram Madhu Kari Ashvadana Prema Rasa Kumudavane Prapulitara Trigane Tate Chao Mano Pringa Gana. Devotional service to Krishna is exactly like a pleasing, jubilant forest of lotus flowers wherein there is ample honey. I request everyone to taste this honey. If all the mental speculators bring the bees of their minds into this forest of lotus flowers and jubilantly enjoy ecstatic love of Krishna day and night, their mental speculation will be completely, transcendently satisfied. Nanavavera Bhakta Jana Hamsa Chakravaka Gana Yatte Save Karena Vihara Krishna Kali Samrinala Yahapai Sarvakala Bhakta Hamsa Karege. The devotees who have a relationship with Krishna are like swans and chakravaka birds who play in the forest of lotus flowers. The buds of those lotus flowers are the pastimes of Krishna, and they are edibles for the swan-like devotees. Lord Sri Krishna is always engaged in his transcendental pastimes. Therefore, the devotees following in the footsteps of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu can always eat those lotus buds, for they are the pastimes of the Lord. Se sarovaregya hamsa chakravakahana sadatan karaha vilasa kandive sakala dukkha paiva paramasukha anyase have premolasa. All the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should go to that lake, and remaining always under the shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, become swans and chakravaka birds in those celestial waters. They should go on rendering service to Lord Sri Krishna and enjoy life perpetually. In this way, all miseries will be diminished, the devotees will attain great happiness, and there will be jubilant love of God. In other words, if one is serving Krishna, even in this world, one is happy in spite of all the different things that are happening in this world, the adhyatmic, adhibodic, and adhidaivic miseries, miseries from the body and mind, miseries from other living entities, and miseries from the material energy in general. E amrita nukshana sarumahanta mega gana vishvojane kare varishana tate pale amrita pala bhakta koya nirantara tara sheshe jiye jakag jana. The devotees who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu take the responsibility for distributing nectarian devotional service all over the world. They are like clouds pouring water on the ground that nourishes the fruit of love of God in this world. The devotees eat that fruit to their heart's content, and whatever remnants they leave are eaten by the general populace. Thus, they live happily. Caitanya Lila Amritapura Krishna Lila Sukhapura Duhe Milihaya Samadurya Sadhguru prasade tahaye ashvade sejana madhura prachurya. The pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are full of nectar, and the pastimes of Lord Krishna are like camphor. When one mixes these, they taste very sweet. By the mercy of the pure devotees, whoever tastes them can understand the depths of that sweetness. Ye Lila Amritavine Kaya Yadiyana Pune Tavi Vaktera Durbala Jivana Yara Ekabindu Pane Utpulita Mate Hase Gaya Karehe Nartana. Men become strong and stout by eating sufficient grains, but the devotee who simply eats ordinary grains but does not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna gradually becomes weak and falls down from the transcendental position. However, if one drinks but a drop of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom, and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance. All the devotees connected with the Krishna conscious movement must read all the books that have been translated, this Caitanya Charitamrta, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal blissful life of transcendental knowledge. E amrita karapana yara samavnahiyana chitte kari sudara vishvasa Napada Kutarka Garte Ameda Karkashavate Yate Padile Haya Sarvanasha. The readers should relish this wonderful nectar because nothing compares to it. Keeping their faith firmly fixed within their minds, they should be careful not to fall into the pit of false arguments or the whirlpools of unfortunate situations. If one falls into such positions, he is finished. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Advaita Adi Vaktavrinda Arayata Shrota Bhakta Gana Thomas Sabara Sri Charana Karishire Vibhushana Yaha Haite Abhishta Purana. In conclusion, I submit to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Prabhu, and all the other devotees and readers that I accept your lotus feet as the helmet on my head. In this way, all my purposes will be served. So we're getting ready to finish the chapter. Shri Rupa Sanatana Raghunatha Jiva Charana Shiredari Yara Karonasha Krishna Lilamritan Vita Chaitanya Charitamrta Kahi Kichudina Krishna Dasa. Taking the feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and Jiva Goswami in my head, I always desire their mercy. Thus I, Krishnadas, humbly try to describe the nectar of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which are mixed with the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Shriman Madan Gopal Govinda Deva Tushtaye Chaitanya Arpitak Ashve Tach Chaitanya Charitam. With the satisfaction of Sri Madana Gopal and Govinda Dev, we pray that this book, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, may be offered to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Wow. Tadidam atirahasyam goralilamritam yat kalasamudaya kola nadratam tar alabhayam byam shatiriyam iha kame swaditam yat samantat saridhyat sumanovir odam mesham tanuti. The Caitanya Charitamrita pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu constitute a very secret literature. It is the life and soul of all devotees. Those who are not fit to relish this literature, who are envious like hogs and pigs, will certainly not adore it. However, this will not harm my attempt. These pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will certainly please all saintly people who have clear hearts. They will certainly enjoy it. We wish that this will enhance their enjoyment more and more. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Madhya Lila, 25th chapter, describing how the inhabitants of Varanasi were converted to Vaishnavism. Note, the author of Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has condemned all of his enemies by comparing them to envious hogs and pigs. The Krishna conscious movement, which is spreading throughout the world, is being appreciated by sincere people, although they have never previously heard of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna's pastimes. Now, even the higher priestly circles are appreciating this movement. They have concluded this movement is very nice and that they have something to learn from it. Nonetheless, in India, there are some people who say that they belong to this cult, but they were actually very envious of the Acharya. They have tried to suppress our activities in many ways, but as far as we are concerned, we follow in the footsteps of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and take them as envious pigs and hogs. Prabhupada is very strong. We simply wish to present the pastimes of Lord Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the best of our ability so that those who are really honest can cleanse their hearts. We hope that they enjoy this literature and bestow their blessings upon us. It appears that even such a great personality as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami met with some envious obstacles. What then to speak of us who are only insignificant creatures in this universe? We are simply trying to execute the orders of our spiritual master to the best of our ability. So this ends the Madhya Lila of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. We're not going to go any further than this today. Tomorrow we can start the Anjalila of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, the final pastimes of the Lord. As we mentioned before, the initial pastimes, well, let's say the Lord's whole manifestation on this earth, I'm not going to say life, the manifestation on this earth was for 48 years. First 24 years was in Navadvip, then he took sannyas, and then he traveled for the next 8 years between Jagannath Puri and the rest of India, well, South India basically. And then for those final years after that, he remained in Jagannath Puri. And what we're going to hear about when we read the Anjalila are the final years of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, exhibiting the symptoms of ecstasy. I mean, just a little coming attraction. Pastimes with a variety of devotees like Haridas Thakur, some pastimes with it, even with the Dvaitacharya, with Lord Nityananda, pastimes of his ecstasies in Jagannath Puri, pastimes with Junior Haridas. I mean, so many different pastimes in this next section. And no traveling to different places, just stay in Jagannath Puri during the final years of his manifestation on this earth planet. So now we will take questions, and tomorrow we'll continue with the Anjalila. So let's go. We will unmute yourself. There's one question already in the chat window, which I'll get to in a secondito. Just let me unmute everybody, or allow you to unmute yourselves. Okay, here's the question. You read how the guru teaches the disciple how to teach. So how can one better get over sounding like a fanatic newbie? Some of us don't ever really get proficient at talking to new people. It's seen even older devotees slip into coming across unintelligible to new people, speaking above their ability to understand. Well, actually, the first point in teaching, remember, I'm not using the P word. The P word is, I'm not even going to use it, preaching. But anyway, so we teach, we share, we give compassion to people, we expose people to Krishna consciousness, you know, all these nice words. So anyway, the first point in teaching is you have to understand who your audience is. I mean, for example, I know quite a bit about quantum mechanics. Okay, so we have a Gurukula here in North Carolina, so if they ask me to teach the students about quantum mechanics, they will simply become bewildered because Basically, they're not ready to hear about quantum mechanics on a higher level, or mathematic constructs, multidimensional calculus. Even the name of multidimensional calculus, would frighten them. I mean, they're doing some quadratic equations. But if I have to understand who I'm teaching, just like if you're a teacher, then first of all, you got to understand who you're teaching and what they're able to understand. That's a simple fact. It doesn't take much training to understand that. And you also have to, another point that's really important. Whoops, I want to go back to the questions that keep scrolling down. Another point that's really important to understand is, what was I going to say? Another point. Well, one has to be Krishna conscious. That wasn't the point I was going to make. The one has to have the adhikar to teach Krishna consciousness, to be spiritually potent, or else, it's not going to affect anyone. Because it's not simply a question of teaching people a bunch of facts, but it's a question of reaching people in their hearts. So in other words, first of all, you have to understand who you're presenting Krishna consciousness to. And you have to understand what your intention is in presenting Krishna consciousness. Then you have to understand the philosophy, and you have to be spiritually potent. All these different factors are really, really, really important if you want to share Krishna consciousness with others. And you have to be practicing, because you have to be an acharya. Acharya means someone who sets an example. There's two words in Sanskrit, prachar and achar. Achar means example, and prachar means what you say, what you speak. So, anyway. So it's not a question of really you needing so much training. What you basically need more than training is the ability to hear from others, understand where they're at. Like I often say, that God has given you 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you're supposed to use the ears twice as much as the mouth when talking to people or communicating with people. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. What does it mean, Rishikesh asks, to understand Krishna when even Lord Brahma can't understand the Lord? You can't understand Krishna 100% or even 1% because Krishna is unlimited. But at least you can understand a certain minuscule percent in truth. Krishna is God. I mean, certain things. Krishna Tattva. The different Tattvas that were explained. There's Krishna Tattva. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God, the source of all incarnations. That's it. And then you have to understand Shakti Tattva, which wasn't mentioned in the previous verse. That's what are the different energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationships between each other. You have to understand Bhakti Tattva. What is the process of bhakti? Then you have to understand Rasa Tattva. What are the different relationships or tastes of different relationships? You have to understand Bhava Tattva. Means the different emotions that are manifested. You have to understand Prema Tattva. That is what is Prema. So that's what it means. Have a basic understanding. I mean, you cannot understand Krishna 100% because Krishna is unlimited. If you could understand Krishna 100%, he wouldn't be Krishna. He wouldn't be unlimited. He wouldn't be God. Anyway, you can't understand anything 100%. You can't even understand yourself 100%. You can't even understand how to use your computer 100%. You can't even understand mathematics 100%. There's unlimited, let us say, levels of mathematics. So how can you even understand mathematics? But at least you can understand 1 and 1 is 2. You can understand 2 and 2 is 4. You can understand a few things, but mathematics gets much more complex. And so how can you understand mathematics? I mean, basically, you cannot fully understand anything. Anything. You can try your best, but you can't. So here's another question. Tori. Haribol, can you explain more deeply why the only way to understand Radha and Krishna is by understanding the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? That's a very good question. Okay, so let's analyze who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Now, how are we going to understand Srimati Radharani? Because to understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, you have to understand Radharani. And also Krishna's attraction to Radharani and what is Radharani's mentality. And so how are you going to understand that? And even Krishna didn't understand it. Which is interesting. Even Krishna didn't understand Radha and Krishna past, or at least Radharani's perspective. He didn't understand the love that Radharani had or has for him. He didn't understand how he looks from her perspective, and he didn't really fully appreciate the ecstasy that she feels in serving him. So in order to do that, he had to take, well, he didn't have to, but this is what he chose to do. He took up her mood. Therefore, he is called Gauranga, because he's golden, like Radharani is called Gaurangi, which is golden feminine form. Anyway, so he took her mood in order to understand her. And so his taking her mood displays to us exactly what her mentality is. Because otherwise we would not fully understand her mentality, and therefore we wouldn't understand Radha Krishna loving exchanges. We would take it as just some ordinary, boy, girl, or even some, heavenly personalities, loving exchanges, or romantic exchanges, or Bollywood, or something like that. So in order for him to understand, then he took on her mood, and in order for us to understand, we understand the manifestations of his mood when he took on her mood. And then it becomes very easy. And also, another point is that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Yuga avatar. And in order to properly approach Radha and Krishna in any age, whether it's the Satya Yuga, the Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, etc., one has to follow the Yuga avatar and the Yuga Dharma. Yuga avatar means the appearance of the Lord in that age, and the appearance of the Lord in the age of Kali, which is the age we're in. Kali means quarrel, and if you haven't discovered that, just read the news. So then, in order to approach the Lord, one has to approach with the Yuga avatar. That's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is Kali Yuga. Kali Kalera Dhamma Krishna Nama Sankirtan, and the Yuga Dharma is Krishna Nama Sankirtan, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu executed. So then we see in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, there's two aspects. One is the external aspect in which he teaches us the Yuga Dharma, which is Krishna Nama Sankirtan. And the other one is the internal aspect in which he teaches us Radharani's mood or love or service attitude towards Krishna. So in this way, by understanding Lord Chaitanya, one can understand Radharani. Otherwise, it's not possible. Especially in this day and age, it's not possible. Radharani is so exalted. Her position is so exalted. Her moods are so exalted. There would be no way of understanding had it not been for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealing or trying to understand these things himself and taking on her mood and then revealing it to us. Just like sometimes if you want to understand someone's feelings, it's necessary to do some role playing, put yourself in their shoes, so to speak. I know one of the techniques we have in conflict resolution is that we actually do role playing, like two people are arguing with each other, and one takes the role of the other, they switch roles. And this way, wow, that's what you were thinking. They appreciate each other. So the best way to understand someone is to take on their role. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does that. Of course, it's not possible for us to take on the role of Radharani, but it's possible for us to hear about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And even his preaching is a manifestation of Radharani's mood of compassion towards everyone. Actually, that's a great question. That's actually one of the best questions I've had since I started giving these classes. So, Tori, we bless you with pure devotional service. Okay, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. You're here at the temple to make flower garlands for Gaur Purnima. So, thank you very much, everybody. And tomorrow we're going to continue with the Lila of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. That's very exciting. Final portion of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. Okay, all glorious to His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada.